understand that that's not getting it over with, that's getting it started. You have to understand, signing a birth certificate isn't some arbitrary execution of, you are saying I am the legal father of this child. I'm taking responsibility for this child.
Miss McDaniel brought Maurice to court because she says he convinced her to have a kid with him, but is refusing to acknowledge him. Maurice says she is a gold digger who was after her money and has been sleeping with multiple guys. She says he was the one who wanted the baby in the first place.
He wanted to have a child, which was biologically his, because he have two that's not his, and he's the daddiest because he signed a birth certificate.
No, Your Honor, that's not true. When I met her off of a site, and from me meeting her from a site, I wanted to see what kind of person she is and see if she wanted to have a life.
He also wanted to have sex with me, Your Honor. He asked me for my number on the site.
Maurice says he was recovering from the loss of his child and wanted to meet someone decent to spend time with. He says he saw Miss McDaniel's profile online and wanted to see her in person. When they met, they had sex in the car. She says he wanted to have a baby with her all along.
I had a 2-year-old child that passed, and that kind of hurt. So when I got up with her, it was like a simple point was like, you know, I wanted to see what kind of lifestyle she was.
But did you not ask
But
for
also
sex?
too, when we had sex when we was coming down the road, and then
Sex was the first night I met Mr. Leonard.
Miss McDaniel says he messaged her online and they talked. They soon met up, and sex was the only thing on his mind, as they had sex in his car upon their first meeting, and also in his house later that day. She also says he could be her sugar daddy since they have a 15-year age difference.
So tell me the first time you all met, what happened?
He hit me in my DM. I gave him my number. He started texting me. So when he texted me and asked, can we meet up? I said yes. Yes, we did have sex the first time, but it was the strength of him wanting to be my boyfriend, which I quote-unquote my sugar daddy.
That's not true at all.
Judge Lauren asks Miss McDaniels what attracted her to Maurice. She says he seemed responsible and was older than her too, and she wanted someone who could be a boyfriend and a father figure to her. Judge Lauren says they found the online profile that initially attracted Maurice to her.
Were you looking for a sugar daddy?
Me, I was looking for somebody to really be my boyfriend / a father figure in my life. It's because I never had a father figure in my life.
And so, Mr. Lennon, what attracted you to Miss McDaniel?
My big booty and my cute smile, you might as well say.
Well, Your Honor, I thought she was a person that had a heart.
Miss McDaniel says she started having feelings for Maurice, and Maurice also confessed the same to her. However, when she asked him for money to buy food, he said no. She says she doesn't have a job and doesn't want to be on food stamps. Maurice says she needed to improve her attitude if she wanted help.
What do you need help with?
Money.
I would ask Mr. Leonard for some money to get some food because I didn't want to go to the government for food stamps.
Did you have a job?
No, I didn't.
So you basically wanted a man to take care of you?
I basically wanted a father figure, so.
You gotta get rid of that attitude first.
Maurice says he didn't acknowledge this child or sign the birth certificate because he has already had paternity issues before. He signed the birth certificates for 2 kids who ended up not being his. This time, his mother intervened and told him to not sign the birth certificate as she didn't want him to get hurt again.
You say on 2 different occasions the child turned out not to be yours?
After he done signed the birth certificate. That's his stupid stuff.
But you signed the birth
certificate. No, I did not sign no birth certificate.
So your mother don't want the same thing to happen with this child.
My mother do not want me to get hurt like I did twice before.
Maurice's cousin Cynthia takes the stand next and says she lives near Maurice's house and she would often see Miss McDaniels being dropped off by random strangers. She says if the baby is Maurice's, he will be taken care of. However, the truth is important. So, what are the DNA test results going to say?
It has been determined by this court. Mr. Lennon, you are not the father.
That's right.
Like I told you.
You sure that's right, Your Honor?
Yes, we're positive.
Miss Foster and Mr. Durden have appeared in court because Mr. Durden is denying their child. He says there is absolutely no way the child is his, even though he is named after him. Miss Foster, however, says she is confident he is the father. So, can Judge Lauren resolve this teenage couple's conflict?
And the reason because he has my name is because I was kind of like pushed to sign the birth certificate.
No, that is not true. We used to talk all the time about, if we have children, like I want my son to have my name.
I want to have my son to have my name.
Your Honor, he is definitely the father of this child.
She says Mr. Durden has contributed nothing in terms of money for the child's care, even though he is the legal father. She says she is a single mother and has to work long hours to support her child and is now struggling. Mr. Durden says he was pushed to sign the birth certificate and is sure the child is actually not his.
My days are long. I call for the babysitter comes, I get ready for work, wait for the bus to come, get on the bus, go to work, come home, late nights, he sleeps most of the time, so I don't even get to spend time with him when I get home. It's sickening to even sit here and have to go through this. He's not someone I just had a one-night stand with. We were in a relationship.
Ms. Foster says she works all day to support her child and leaves her son with a babysitter. She gets to spend no time at all with him because he's asleep when she gets home. Even with all this effort, she is falling deeper into debt every month because she can't handle the child's finances alone.
And it's just like I wouldn't even have to be in the negatives if I had a sister.
So you also submitted to the court if Mr. Durden contributed financially monthly, just pretty much $750 for you, $767.50, which would be his contribution, you would have about $130 left over.
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Durden says he hasn't contributed to the child's expenses because he is positive the baby isn't his. Why is that? Well, apparently, they have always used protection when having sex. Miss Foster says that isn't strictly true. She also says he's suspicious because he ran off with her phone one day and saw some messages with another guy.
We did use condoms sometimes, not all the time, not 100% of the time. Me and Ian broke up. After that, we sat down and we talked for him. He just kept eyeing my phone. So when he was eyeing my phone, he took it, he ran in the bathroom with it, read some text messages that were between me and a guy that
saw a picture.
He was someone who was comforting me at the time. It was not anything. We never had sex or anything like that.
He says he is sure the child isn't his because the guy he saw in her phone is the same guy she took to her sonogram appointment. Can Miss Foster disprove this claim? She says he was only supporting her as a friend during her pregnancy because Mr. Durden disappeared from her life and didn't offer any support at all.
She took a selfie with a guy, and it was the guy who took her to the doctor for the sonogram of the baby.
I wasn't having sex with him. He wasn't my boyfriend. He was just there when you weren't. That same night that he took my phone and ran with it, I finally got him to come to the house so I can just sit down and talk to him. He didn't want to talk. Ian wanted to have sex, so we did, and it was without a condom, and I believe that's the night that my son was conceived.
Judge Lauren says she's confused why he signed the birth certificate and named the kid after himself if he was so sure the child wasn't his. He says he didn't want to embarrass Miss Foster in front of her family in the hospital, so he signed it and his family convinced him to. Miss Foster says no one forced him.
She didn't want the child to be named after me.
So you lobbied for that?
It took her mother and I think one of her friends to tell her it's the right thing to do if the baby's his.
But I'm confused. You say this child is not yours.
I didn't really want to embarrass her in front of her mom and her sisters and stuff.
But nobody forced you to sign anything. He didn't have to sign a birth certificate. You signed it because you wanted to.
Judge Lauren asks him if he has any proof of Miss Foster's infidelity besides his protected sex story. He says one of his friends told him Miss Foster was hanging out with some other guy and it looked suspicious. She says she has guy friends like everyone else. So, can the paternity test resolve this mess for them?
It has been determined by this court. Mr. Durden, you are the father. What would you like to say, ma'am?
I don't think that I'm gonna be able to get over the hurt. I'm overjoyed, that he knows now, that it's true. You are the father, but it's just like, what are you gonna do differently?
Mr. Patterson has brought Miss Knight to court because of a paternity issue they're experiencing. He says he has raised DJ as his own for the past 4 years, but Miss Knight now claims another man might be the biological father. She says DJ has Mr. Patterson's name, but he could still be someone else's kid.
I've been there since birth, since he came out the womb, since he entered this world. When the doctor first, held him up and finally gave him to him, I witnessed him just completely quit crying and looked me dead in my eyes, and that's when, at that moment, I knew I became someone's father.
Mr. Patterson says he had doubts, but they all disappeared the moment he saw DJ because he felt like he was holding his biological child. She says that's not true, and she told Mr. Patterson that her pregnancy could have potentially been caused by someone else. So, she was honest from the start.
I let DeMarcus know when I got pregnant that there was a possibility that I could be pregnant by someone else.
Do you remember this conversation, Mr. Patterson?
Yes, Your Honor, in a way. When she first told me she was pregnant, that's when we was like, I guess you could say doing the house hopping thing, cause like in order
Doing the what?
The house hopping thing, cause when she moved out of her parents' house, she ain't had nowhere to go, so let her live there too.
Their relationship began when Miss Knight moved out of her parents' home and moved in with Mr. Patterson. He then cheated on her with another woman, which made Miss Knight very angry. She left his house with Mr. Sigler, whom she slept with. She says she told Mr. Patterson that Mr. Sigler could also be the dad.
When you left, you ended up with Mr. Sigler.
Right.
Which is the other possible father.
Right. We ended up having protected sex that night, and then we ran out of condoms, and while we were doing it, I told him to go ahead and get me pregnant. That's what I told him. And as soon as I found out I was pregnant, I called DeMarcus and let DeMarcus know, I'm pregnant right now, and it's a possibility that it's Ladarius's baby or your baby.
Miss Knight says that she and Mr. Sigler don't really get along. After staying with him for a few days, Miss Knight told Mr. Patterson that she was pregnant, and he told her he wanted her to come back. So he came by with his car and told her to get her stuff because she was leaving with him.
I didn't beg him. I said, DeMarcus, come get me. And DeMarcus pulled up in the car and was like, where's your stuff? He carried my stuff on his back, got in the car, and we went on about our way. Him knowing that I could be pregnant by somebody else, he was okay with the situation.
And at this point, you're testifying that you believed he was the father based upon the time frame.
I believed it was a possibility.
Judge Lauren asks Mr. Patterson why he signed the birth certificate if there were doubts surrounding the paternity. He said he did so because when he held DJ, he fell in love. He decided to name DJ after himself and also to throw away the idea of the DNA test because he didn't want it anymore.
So you signed the birth certificate?
Yes, Your Honor, I signed the birth certificate.
Willingly?
Yes, Your Honor.
Without a doubt at that time, you went on and signed it?
Yes, Your Honor. I mean, I was gonna do the DNA test.
Okay,
and I
right.
looked at him, and then that's when I threw the DNA test out the picture.
At that moment, DeMarcus said, that is my baby. His name is going to be DeMarcus Latarius Patterson Jr.
Mr. Patterson says the issue surrounding DJ's paternity was a very common topic in their household. As DJ grew older, they both thought he began looking a lot like Mr. Sigler. He says she's evil because she'd put him on child support even if he wasn't the father. She says neither of them is giving her any money so far.
If they say that I don't get to take my name off and have a DNA test, you'll put me on child support if you could.
Look, you know it's a possibility that you're the father, and Ladarius knows a possibility that's the father, and ain't none of y'all giving me nothing anyway, so you think you don't deserve to go
I bought
on
his
it?
first pair of sneakers. I buy him everything.
When I asked DeMarcus to do something, he will. When I asked, but the only reason why he stopped doing the things like he used to come in and just do it.
Miss Knight then makes another surprise revelation. She says Mr. Sigler's mother is Miss Knight's godmother. Mrs. Sigler has played a pivotal role in DJ's life as well, because Miss Knight included both men in DJ's life because she wasn't sure who the father was. So, what will the DNA test results say?
It has been determined by this court. The biological father is Mr. Sigler. You are DJ's biological father, Mr. Sigler. Mr. Patterson, are you all right?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
I know this is hard.
I'm hurt about it.
Miss Nesbitt has brought Mr. Henderson to paternity court because she wants him to acknowledge their young daughter. She says he does more for her other son that's not his than for his own daughter. Mr. Henderson says she cheated on him with the neighbor, and he can't get over that.
I shouldn't have to take care of another man's baby.
But you are taking care of another man's baby, right?
Yes, but at this time, I came into this baby's life and already knew he wasn't mine, but I had a possibility that she could have been mine, but she's not, so I felt kind of hurt. So
there's a level of resentment there.
Yes, ma'am.
Miss Nesbitt says he does not contribute to their daughter's care except buying her diapers. She says if he was really so doubtful, why did he sign the birth certificate? She clearly told him that there's a possibility the child isn't his, so there was no need to sign the birth certificate. But he did it anyway.
You had asked him previously not to sign it because you had doubts yourself.
Yes, Your Honor.
So, Mr. Henderson, you did sign the birth certificate?
Yes, Your Honor.
Do you remember having the conversation with Miss Nesbitt that said, don't sign it just yet because it may not be yours?
Yes, Your Honor.
And you signed it anyway?
Yes, Your Honor.
She also says he lied to his father about getting a DNA test before signing the certificate, even though he had gotten no such thing. He says he did that to get his father off his case. However, Mr. Henderson says signing the birth certificate, despite the doubts, was him trying to convince himself that the kid was his.
Your Honor, he even lied to his father and told him that he got a DNA at the hospital when he didn't.
When you sign a birth certificate at a hospital, you are acknowledging paternity. So when you signed your name, you said, I'm the father, I'm gonna take care of this child.
Yes, Your Honor.
So why are you not taking care of the child and only bought some diapers?
Mr. Henderson says he came home drunk one night and Miss Nesbitt was angry, and she told him he was probably not even the father of their baby. This story started when Mr. Henderson got his cousin pregnant. Miss Nesbitt, in anger, cheated on him with their neighbor, Mr. Brown, and became pregnant soon after.
When she told you she'd also slept with Mr. Brown, but it was just one night,
Yes, Your Honor.
did you say to yourself, well, I know now this could possibly be his child, or you tried to just, you were living in denial?
I was living in denial, Your Honor.
The baby looked just like you. You took pictures with her. You
I
go
had
to
love
doctor's
for her.
appointment,
I had
everything,
love
and
for you.
now
I
you're
love you.
sitting up here denying her.
He says he accompanied her to the hospital, but he had doubts about the paternity because she told him the condom broke when she was having sex with Mr. Brown. Miss Nesbitt says the baby looks just like Mr. Henderson. So, what's going to be the end of this confusing story? Let's find out.
Mr. Henderson, you are her father.
Told you was her father from the beginning.
Are you happy?
Yes, I mean, I love to be her father, but if she can't change, I'ma leave. I'ma still do for my daughter because I'm not that guy. This will be my only child.
You all now have a child together.